All right, we just started streaming.
It's all good.
All right, so we'll give it a second. Talking to people. I'm not sure anyone's there. If you're there watching, let us know. But we are here at the GAMA Trade Show. It is halfway through day 2. The show is kind of like 4 days, maybe, because Monday's kind of a slow start.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday's kind of a full day. So is Wednesday and Thursday. Thursday kind of ends early, and Friday, supposedly there's a few meetings in the morning, but no one goes to them.
Yeah, Friday's the kind of the wind down day, and there's still a few people hanging around, like us too.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of weird from our perspective, because the 2 key days are really the Wednesday and the Thursday, because that's when we're actually in the exhibitor hall and we're showing the games. Yeah, so it's kind of at a loose end for the first 2 days.
Well, there's still a lot of meetings and stuff that can happen here, and talking to distributors. So, folks, if you're watching, I'm Tom Vasel, of course, and we have 2 very famous people. First, we have we have Rory O'Connor, designer of Rory Story Cubes, and Michael Fox, star of Back to the Future, Teen Wolf.
Secret of My Success.
It's very, very popular. Those are great movies, and you're looking good and
feeling healthy.
Well, okay.
No, I'm really
one
not.
of those was a lie.
Yeah, one of those was a definite lie.
So anyway, Michael Fox, you used to have a podcast. You still do some videoing, I think? Or?
Still do some video stuff. I'm actually putting together plans for a new show, a new podcast, which will be sort of basically sort of like Gameonomics, looking at the business behind the business behind the business kind of thing. So I've actually been really sort of like quite lucky wandering around the show floor here and talking to people and saying, hey, are you interested in coming on and talking about what you do in the industry from a business point of view? I don't know, I've really sort of like grown interested over the last few months about how things work, how things produced, how not just from a design point of view, but like the actual metrics of pulling a game together and then how that game gets put out into the system. So I think people are hopefully going to be a bit interested in that too.
I mean, I think because we're working together with Hub Games, and we're often talking about we've got an idea for a game and how we're going to get it out there, and there's the logistics, the manufacturing, distribution, and we're also seeing online conversations that are happening about the changes that are occurring within the industry as well. So I'm guessing that kind of feeds into.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I was just down in the Asmund Day presentation, so speaking to Christian Peterson about it, saying, I'd love to come. And it's just like, dude, you're like one of the most powerful people in games, and you're willing to spend some time on it. Luckily, I did interview him a few years ago for the Little Metal Dog Show, my old podcast, but he was really, really, really grateful and said, yeah, I'd love to come on again. It's really, really cool. So yeah, watch out for it. It will be horrifyingly dull for many people, but for me it'll be very interesting.
See, I find it really fascinating, because it's one thing to buy like a game off a shelf, but to understand what actually goes into getting that game in front of people is, I know at our end when we're trying to make a game, there's a lot of moving pieces that you have to figure out to make it work, and I kind of hope it'll help people to kind of really appreciate what they're getting on their game table, I think, by listening to the podcast.
Hopefully, we shall see. But yeah, keep an eye out for it soon. It should be intriguing.
Well, speaking of things that getting them in front of people, I mean, this is I'm always fascinated with this, because I remember very clearly when you sent me Rory Story Cubes way back when. It was a small thing, 9 dice, and I thought it was fun and interesting, and didn't think much more about it. And then I remember talking to Fun Again Games, and they said, yeah, this is one of the hottest sellers out there. And I said, really?
You've got the little black box. I think you've got like the original.
Yeah, the black box. And I didn't. I mean, this was years ago, so I was more surprised by things. I think now I would be like, okay, that makes more sense, right? But at the time, we didn't expect it. I didn't. I don't know if you expected it to do as well as it did.
When we used to because I would carry that box with me everywhere, and my friends got completely fed up with me, showing it at every opportunity.
Well, that's fair enough.
And myself and Anita, my wife, were the co-owners of the Creativity Hub, now Hub Games. I mean, we used to say we're either ahead of our time or we're just completely mad, and that was kind of the perception, is this is either going to kind of ignite something, or we're just like completely crazy. And kind of luckily, I think we proved the first thing was that it was a kind of a latent need or want within people to have something like this to play with.
Was there something where you just saw, because I know no one ever talks about numbers, but I do know that Rory Story Cubes has sold Hundreds of thousands minimum.
I think we're at this year probably about 8 million.
Yeah. Okay. So that was close. I mean, but that's amazing. Very few game designers can say such a thing. Was there a moment where you were like, people are accepting of this? This is amazing, or was it? Has it been like a slow climb?
It accelerated, I think, quite quickly after GameRite took Rory Story Cubes for the North American market, and the year they launched it, it really kind of struck a chord here. And December 2011 was when it hit number 1 on Amazon.
I was just saying, it was one of the few. I mean, Amazon. I remember someone saying that Amazon. This was one of their biggest games for a long time.
Yeah, and I was actually just talking to someone who used to work with Amazon, and they said they actually started using Rory Story Cubes as part of their PR about how many they had actually sold at the time. So for us, that's when we went, holy cow, there's something going on here that we hadn't really planned for. And it was a case of really just keeping up with that. That year, like 2011, was the first time we were at Nuremberg Toy Fair as well. And we had people from different countries coming up to us and saying, we've heard about this thing, we want to take it for like Germany, we want to take it for kind of Sweden, we want to take it for Spain. And that's when people were coming to us and not us going to other people. Was a really,
that's always a good
nice
thing,
thing.
right?
Yeah. I always try to create those moments where I don't have to do the selling. People come to you to ask for something.
So how many different sets are there now of it?
In the core range, there's when you think of the mix sets, there's I think 21 altogether. So the 3 of the 9 cube sets, and then 18 3-cube sets. And
how many of the 9 cubes?
So there's 3 of the base ones, but
I'm including licenses.
So and then with the licenses, that's another 5 on top of that.
No, 6 now, because we had
Adventure Time. Okay, I know you have Batman and Doctor Who, Looney Tunes.
Yes.
Looney Tunes, yep.
Scooby-Doo, Moomin, and Adventure Time.
And then something new coming out later this year
through Asmodee.
Which is the Star Wars.
Yeah, so there's going to be Rory Story Cubes Star Wars coming in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that would have been exciting when you got that license.
It's not me. I wanted to do it.
It's still your game now.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that with Untold, having Star Wars to go with Untold for us is just amazing, because essentially Untold becomes the Star Wars role-playing game.
Oh yeah.
The other Star Wars.
Well, let's talk about that briefly. Because, so you said it used to be your company has recently changed. You're down just Hub. So what brought this about? What is Hub?
So like I said, the Creativity Hub, our original company, was founded by myself and Anita, and it was really to bring kind of Rory Story Cubes out to a wider audience. It was out of necessity back in 2008. With the economic crash, we kind of had to find some way of earning a living at the time. And we decided to focus
selling
on
dice with pictures.
Yeah,
hey, it works.
It's a great idea. And we kind of got to a point where, especially Anita has always been in the background of the company, and she's incredibly creative person. Contributed so much to the design and the idea of the game. She was kind of going, look, I've had enough with this. I need to be doing something creative. And we were both really managing the company and not getting to create. And we're both
that's how that works after a while, right?
Yeah.
You're popular, and then you got to do that business stuff.
And I think we found, we're a small company based in Belfast, and we kind of found we were hitting a ceiling with where we could actually get Rory Story Cubes, but yet we knew there's far more people who still hadn't discovered it. We'd see it on social media, people finding it for the first time, and we kind of went, you know what, it's probably time for someone else to just manage it. Like, it didn't need our kind of creative kind of passion and the pitching of it. It just needed someone to kind of look after it as a range. And so we had been approached by different companies who were interested in like buying the IP for Rory Story Cubes or for licensing it. And we just felt that we had a long relationship with Asmodee. They've been our distributor in France and in Spain for many years. And just we kind of felt by going with them, it would actually protect a lot of our distributors around the world, that Asmodee would keep working with them, and it wasn't a case of, sorry, you've supported us from the beginning, you can't do Story Cubes anymore. So for us, it was, we could hand Rory Story Cubes over to someone else to look after, and all of the people who'd made it a success could still kind of enjoy the success of it as well.
Well, the new game, Untold, is kind of like a cassette player, right? And you plug a
Yeah, it's a
Rory
nice way of
Story
saying it.
Cubes into it.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you see more versions of that show up at some point?
Well, for us, Untold is like our swan song. We'd wanted to make this game for ages, and part of the conversation with Asmodee was like, we want to make this game before we sell the IP for it. I mean, the idea with the game is you can plug any Story Cube set into it. It has the potential, the way Untold is designed, it's very much adventure stories.
Right.
The way the scene setup is.
All of ours have turned into cartoons.
Yeah. But there is the potential for like other types of stories to be told using this framework, and it really depends on whether the game is popular with people, whether we invest our time into doing more of that, or whether we make new ideas as well. I mean, John Fury, who I worked with on this, he's unbelievable, like when it comes to like dissecting story and narrative, and his whole background is in kind of mythology and English language, and so he's actually got the templates for other, for tragedy based games, kind of waiting to produce.
Because it's the hero's journey archetype, as untold as is right now. So the idea behind, we have had people asking previously, sort of like saying, are you going to do any other archetypes later down the line? Which, if the interest is there and this version of Untold goes well, it does have that subtitle of Untold Adventures Await. So it's like
Tragedy awaits.
Tragedy awaits, or romance awaits, or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on. Tapping away.
Yeah, I want to add in the actual what this is about, so people are not.
Now people can know.
So people think we're still on the last stream because I didn't change it. So if you have any questions for Rory and Michael, you can ask them. I see there's 60 people watching, so that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
You can ask anything like, how could I make a game that sells 8 million copies?
So they can ask you and Alan Moon.
So
actually, I don't think Ticket to Ride sold 8 million.
I think Ticket to Ride got to what?
I think it's around 6 right now.
They have the stickers, and this is like over 6 million sold.
Which could mean 6 million one, but yes.
Yeah.
Catan is probably sold.
But I kind of always go like, in terms of economic value, they're like way ahead.
Well, right, because it's a really small game, but it's still a neat thing. I mean, if you think about 8 million games, that's, even if some of them never get used, you're still talking millions of people who have played it.
Yeah.
And it's not even really a game as much as it's a focused activity.
Yeah.
I mean, even the new one, Untold, is really kind of a shared experience between people.
We tried to create as much of a board game experience out of a role-playing game, because if we look at a role-playing game based on the criteria you're talking about, a role-playing game isn't a game.
Yeah,
because
you're right. There's no goal. Unless, I mean, you could make it a game, but it would be unfun for everyone involved.
You can't win Dungeons and Dragons. You can't like max level. And
well, some dungeon masters try.
Some do. Rocks fall, everyone died. But like it's a game in a different way. In the way that we play games on the playground, we play with each other. We go out and have a fun collaborative experience.
I think with Untold, you can kind of, it works towards a climax, and if you pull up, if you manage to kind of resolve things by the end of the fifth scene, then you kind of have one. It just means the loss isn't as bad because you just go, oh, cliffhanger, and we go into the next episode. But we were trying to give as much of that kind of structured experience that people get with role-playing games that was kind of absent for a lot of people with story cubes, because they would say they kind of wanted to play it, but the lack of structure was off-putting for some people. Whereas now with Untold, it gives them that mental framework in which to create a story.
Well, Ryan here says he hasn't heard of Untold yet, which you should check it out. But he says, who was your target audience for the game?
So when we started, it was very much a mom and 2 kids. So they could sit down and go on an adventure together. And by that, what we meant was that we had to strip away everything we assumed about a role-playing game. And just say, this is a mom with 2 kids. How do they have the experience of going on an adventure and the thrill that I have, when I play a role-playing game where the game evolves and changes as I'm playing it. There's a continuity to the story, and that the choices I have an impact in the game as well. So whilst it's designed for like role players who some of their group don't turn up, they can play this as a 60-minute one shot. People who have always been interested in role playing games but were put off by the amount of work that goes into kind of prepping for it. But it always came back to, can a mom and 2 kids, they're kind of like 8-year-olds, sit down and go on an adventure together with this.
Someone said, what's the best StoryCube story you've ever had from a user? Maybe something inspirational.
Oh man,
you get told a lot.
So people come up and tell you their stories?
Like the weird thing about StoryCubes is that I always say it like you have to be there in the moment.
Right, that's the polite thing.
Because when you try to tell it to someone else afterwards, they just don't hold up. And that's the interesting contrast with Untold, because you could literally write the story that happened in Untold, and it's a gripping read. And that's how I know the difference between someone playing Untold and StoryCubes. In terms of story, like I do remember one from, and this was way back in like 2009, even before it kind of officially launched. I was in a bookstore in Dublin, and we were playing with these kids as part of a literary event that was happening, and they rolled the story cubes and they talked about a ghost dragon, and they were attacking these underwater zombies, and like that's always stuck with me like since 2009. I was like, oh my god, I want to know more about this ghost dragon. And that's when when I see moments like that and people's imagination, it's what for me is a really satisfying outcome for making Rory story cubes.
Next person says, have you ever added in fan-based cubes?
No, we had like great ideas for doing this way back. We had ideas for making almost like the iTunes of story cubes, where you could go and kind of like submit icons and create them. And I realized over time that there was such a process that we went through in terms of designing and selecting the icons. I kind of went, I'm going to have to be more like Steve Jobs than Google, as in like they're kind of my vision of, I'm trying to create something for people that they have the best storytelling experience with it. Talking to people has probably inspired some of the icons, but we've never kind of invited like submit your icons and then we'll base a new set on that.
What about have any authors come up to you and said they use story cubes to get over writer's block?
Yes, we do
regularly.
Get that a lot.
Really?
Yeah. We've a couple of people who've actually published books, both short stories and a trilogy. And there's a fantasy trilogy, I can't remember the name, but that was created using Rory story cubes.
Just like Game of Thrones. If you're not sure.
Yeah.
But it's all shot around where we are, so we like to think we've had a part in it.
But it's a regular thing, and it's actually NaNoWriMo is like an event that happens every November, and a lot of people use it during NaNoWriMo to just get them going in terms of writing as well.
Have you heard of people using them like in weddings as like gifts at the tables? It seems like it would work there.
Someone used it, I think, as part of a proposal.
Really?
Yeah, I think they rolled the story cubes and they used it to propose to their partner. I've had a couple who actually put them at the tables at their wedding as well, to get people kind of talking and playing together.
Yeah, it seems like a good idea for that. So maybe we'll see a cartoon from Untold, right? Someone will...
Hopefully.
That would be pretty cool.
I mean, we've... that's kind of where people are looking at using it in terms of... If people are looking at it from an educational perspective, it helps with narrative story writing. But yeah, I mean, hopefully someone will come back and go, oh my god, I had this series that was pitched to Netflix. That was based on it.
All right, so Untold is out now.
Yes.
And so what's coming out this year?
So it's the upcoming, the thing we're currently working on, we're actually putting the finishing touches to it, which is Holding On, subtitle The Troubled Life of Billy Kerr. And we've actually said very little about it. We put a sort of like a stealth announcement out about it just before
they actually rolled dice to make the games at this point.
It's entirely, that's how our process works. So we put a little bit of information about it out just before Nuremberg. We put one image up, and it's like a rough image that probably actually won't even be in the final game, but it's representative of what we want the game to look like. So the storyline is there's this guy, he's called Billy Kerr. You know nothing about him apart from his name. He's 60 years old, and he's had a heart attack on a flight from Sydney, Australia. And of course, if somebody has a heart attack on a flight, they will generally divert the flight and land it nearest place they can. He gets rushed to the hospital, and that is where you, as the players, come in. So it's a cooperative worker placement game with
That is a
puzzly
theme I've never heard
elements.
before.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You're winning on new themes.
Yeah.
So thematically, this isn't a game we could have put out like 2 or 3 years ago. Like the door's been opened to us by a lot of games. Like I've been inspired by Fog of Love, and then We Held Hands. This War of Mine is another one that we referred to as well. It's actually a pretty dark theme. You know, it is the story of a man who is dying.
So I would counter that. I would say it's not actually a dark theme.
Well, no, okay, we're going to have an argument now on stage. So let's go for it. So, all right, give me your concept of it.
So when we kind of created this idea, it's about kind of...
This is optimist versus pessimist, by the way,
Yeah.
for sure.
This is definitely I'm the pessimist of the group.
It's actually, the game is actually about celebrating the life of someone, like a life lived. When we talk about it, the focus of the game is on about a life lived, but it's been contrasted by the rapid decline of this person. So it's this kind of race between trying to care for this person, but also they've asked for your help to basically help them come to terms with 3 things that happened in their life as well.
This game sounds pretty deep.
Yeah, it kind of is. But actually, that's actually a very good representation of how we both approach the game, because we're co-designers on it. And I think I do see the darker elements of it, and you see the more positive, sort of like the happier aspects to it. But the two of us have come together to create this. Yeah, actually, it's quite a deep and thoughtful game. You are celebrating this person's life, but he's, you know, he is a person. You know, Billy has done some good things, Billy has done some bad things, and you'll discover them as you play through the game.
And what is interesting with the game is everyone will have a different relationship with Billy because of how what happens is, as you play the game, you have to make a decision. Each day there's like 3 shifts that the players have to look after. They have a choice. Do they want to provide physical care, which is basically going to slow his decline, or do they provide palliative care, which is where they spend time with him and he shares memories. The way he shares memories is you draw cards from a memory deck, which will basically build up a kind of a tableau of 30 cards that represent his life. But he's only partially telling you things. You have to build trust with him before he actually shares the kind of the clear memory, which comes from another card deck, which builds up more of the picture. So what's really interesting is, as the memories come out, everyone will have their associations based on which cards they saw first. You know, so if you saw the cards from the later era of his life, you'll say, oh, Billy is this person. But if you drew the cards from his childhood, you'll say, oh, he's this person. So we're constantly trying to confound the players' assumptions about people.
Wow, this doesn't sound like anything that's out on the market, actually.
We
I
hope
don't
it
think so.
isn't. Yeah, I mean, the only comparison we've had is to a video game that neither of us have actually played, called To the Moon, which is the story. It's an older man looking back on his life and looking at the things he's done. Again, both positive and negative. But what we're looking to do with Holding On is, it's not just the focus on him. We as players need to make some very difficult and tricky decisions, but we also need to then potentially reach outside the hospital, you know, the walls of the hospital, and dig deeper into his life. So it's it is very different to anything out there.
You know, Anita calls it Grey's Anatomy. You know, that's kind of the feeling, is that we're players getting involved in this person's life when we shouldn't really.
Is this your design?
Yes.
When's it coming out, you said?
Essen. Yeah.
We do have a prototype with us, if you want to go while you're here.
Well, I'd be sad when it's over.
Yeah. That depends.
Yeah.
But actually,
I'm really intrigued with this. Maybe I will try it out.
One other quick thing is that it's all based on real world events.
Yes, everything in it is historically accurate. We have worked our butts off to make sure that everything in it is from events that like happen in the real world through to situations and scenes.
Does that mean this plane, though, mean his heart attack happens in 2018?
2020.
2020, yeah. So there is
okay.
a little bit of future aspects to it, but
just so we could line up certain events, we set it in 2020. So he's 60 in 2020.
When was he born?
So,
or do I not know?
Oh no, so if he's 60 in 2020.
Oh, I missed the 60 part.
So there'll be like little clues inside the cards and in the narrative that unfolds, that literally, if you Google it, it will tell you about historical events that happened as part of this person's life.
But he is a fictional character.
He's like an amalgamation of a lot of different experiences.
Oh man! All right, so people can find us at Essen. Alrighty, folks. Well, we're gonna keep going. We gotta hunt down other people, and you guys got to go back and live in your castle made of story cubes.
I have a fort at home.
I,
I mean, it's obviously while we're on the stream, one thing I want to mention because it's happening here is Blank. Has been kind of officially launched by Asmodee. So you can find out about that, but I'm going to give you like the kind of sneak thing for the future. We're working with, so Blank is a card game which we nickname as Uno Legacy. You guys reviewed it, where the game changes every time you play it and you make new rules. We have been working with some top designers to create what we call charity designer packs, where their rules will replace the core rules in Blank. So now you start making a game based off of their core rule set. And the idea is that with every pack, which should retail about $6, a donation will be made to the charity of the designer's choice as well. The first set will be announced at Gen Con and go on sale at Essen.
no, that's really cool. You guys are gonna have a good Essen.
It's going to be a very good Essen. Very good indeed.
Hopefully.
Alrighty, guys. Well, thanks so much for watching. Well, I'll be back as the day goes by. Can't tell you when, can't tell you where, can't tell you with who. But until next time, I'm Tom Vasel, and you guys have been
Rory O'Connor.
And Michael Fox.
and that's from Hub Games. See you guys later.